Hey everybody. Akash from DBT Labs very graciously offered to walk me through the setup uh, for the uh, next steps after introduction to SQL. So you can see that I'm signed in here on the DBT Labs learning path. Uh, Akash, would you just like to say hi and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Akash Trivedi. I'm one of the technical instructors in the training team at DBT Labs. So I developed this learning path and will most likely be delivering your workshop in a few months. So the idea here is to just make sure you're all comfortable with the setup involved for local development using DBT alongside some other tools like BigQuery and VS Code. We're going to focus mostly on BigQuery and DBT in this video. And I know you mentioned there just then the introduction to SQL course, but there are multiple places in which you are kind of referencing this setup instructions, and there are times just be aware there are like differences between those because this learning path is made up of different course components. And so the primary one that we'll be using in the workshop, Jeremy, sorry, if you scroll down, I'll show you which one
Sure.
we're referencing as the primary setup course. So if you keep scrolling, I think this comes in the second or milestone. Yeah, second milestone. If you keep scrolling, a bit more, bit more, bit more. So we have foundations. Sorry, yeah. At the end of this, keep scrolling. So we'll have the yeah. There we go. Milestone 3, hands-on development, has this
Mm.
end-to-end setup. This course, this micro course that you can see, end-to-end setup, AE for students. That is when in all my documentation that I send out to students and to universities, I'm referencing this micro course as like the kind of complete set of instructions for what you need to do ahead of the workshop. So if you feel like there's multiple places where you're getting set up instructions, focus on this one.
Got
That's
it.
what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. That's hugely important. I'm going to continue the learning path now,
hmm
and I've completed the first one, the second one, and I would like to continue Introduction to SQL.
hmm
Is that fair? Is that what I should do?
We can do that. Yeah, yeah. Because as part of this, there will still be setup that we'll need to do.
Right, right. And then after we do this. Would you recommend that I go back to, or do I just keep on the path, or would you suggest that I go back to the end-to-end setup? What would be my next step after today?
Yeah, so what I would encourage you and learners to do is not to treat this kind of like a sequence of courses that you must complete in order to attend the workshop, because time is finite and like
Sure.
it's quite difficult to just ensure you've done everything. So if your time is short, if you need to prioritize and focus on specific courses only, I would highly recommend focusing on this one, the
Okay.
end-to-end setup, because that will ensure that you've done everything you need to be successful, at least from the setup perspective, for the workshop. You might not yet understand all the DBT fundamentals because you've not done that course yet, but at least
Okay.
from a setup perspective, you will appreciate kind of like you will have also implemented everything you'll need.
Okay. So if I hit continue here,
Yeah, yeah,
where should I go?
yeah. So from now, let's just go to that setup so you get a good idea of like what to expect there.
The AE one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, great.
Seeing as I've like spent a lot of time focusing on that. Yeah, so within that, if it says like you need to complete previous things first, then we'll just come back to it later. Um,
Here we go. So
but
I
yeah, if
went
you
down to
start, yeah,
milestone 3. I hit the
hmm
little expansion icon there on the right, and now I'm in here.
hmm
Okay, so end-to-end setup, AE for students. I'm going to start that course.
okay.
Okay,
So what you're seeing
I
here,
have you.
yeah. So what you're seeing here is you have multiple videos on the left-hand side guiding you through the different steps you need to go through to essentially achieve the setup. And then at the end, you have a setup checklist to just remind you of what you need to have done by the end of this micro course. So the first two steps are related to VS Code, Git, and the VS Code extension, which primarily is not the focus for today's video. This video is focused more on the BigQuery side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you click on BigQuery, you will see again there's reference to what you need to do to set up the BigQuery side of things with the data. This goes into a lot more depth than what we need to do now for just the basic setup of BigQuery and the connection to DBT. So this is more just raising visibility of this course and the videos that contain, just to guide you to what you'll need for the workshop. But for now, Jeremy, if you can go back to the guidance that you were looking at previously, because that just talks through kind of like the basic BigQuery setup.
Um, uh,
So that was, I
so
think,
back,
an introduction to SQL. I think you had that.
oh, you wanted me back to Introduction to SQL. Okay, here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we have to set up a DBT Cloud free trial account, correct?
Hmm.
Okay. And then we'll have to connect to a data source. And there's a number of them here, but you were telling me that the one that you recommend is BigQuery.
Yeah, just to keep things
Sure.
consistent
Just to
between.
keep things
Yeah.
consistent. Okay. So I'm going to do both these things now. I'm going to I'm going to do the first thing. So I'm going to click there and I'm going to sign up. And actually, I'm going to just, I've got the helper here. And I'm going to just pause the video briefly while I type in a password. And also, I'm going to turn off, I have LastPass enabled. So let me turn that off. So I'm going to pause the recording ever so briefly. All right, so I've typed in my Temple email address, name, company, Temple University. I've typed a password twice. Um, I'm agreeing to the terms of use. I'm saying that I'm not a robot and hitting create account. Okay, I'm going to get a confirmation email in just a second. And that looks like this. So I'm going to verify my email address. And I'm not ready to go to the summit yet, so I'm going to say no thanks and thank you. And I'm going to say I am new to DBT. Next. And I'm doing this to advance my career. Complete. And now I'm in, and
Yeah.
can we do this part right now?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So when you first create an account, the default is to give you access to the first paid tier on a trial basis. So you have a 2 week trial just to see some other features. We won't need those features as part of what we're doing. So if you're concerned about what will happen in 2 weeks, then you can just go to plans and pricing and just manually downgrade to the free tier, which will be free for you to use forever.
So there it is. Got that button or that
Yeah.
button. Fine. Uh,
That's fine.
I am a student, right? Sure. Okay. And I guess I don't need this tab anymore. So I'm going to close that. And,
That's fine.
oh, oh,
I thought we
yeah.
had the other tab. It's
Turn to
fine.
home.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. What now?
So now what you have is the flow to set up your first project. So we'll just give it a useful name. You can give your name, you can write what it is you're intending to do in terms of the analytics. But yeah, Schaefer Analytics is as good as any name. So then we can continue. Next, you have to set up a connection to your data platform. So this, in our case, will be BigQuery, but of course you can have multiple connections with other platforms as well. But we don't have any connections set up yet, so we'll just have to add new connection. So here you can see the different options available. We'll click on BigQuery. And just make sure you are, yeah, you can give it a different name if you wish. This is more useful if you have multiple BigQuery connections, for example. Then you can separate them.
Yeah.
Definitely select BigQuery and not legacy.
Right.
Very important. Very important.
I to the students who are watching this, I learned that the hard way. So don't try the other one. Okay. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Next, what we'll need is now we actually need to create a BigQuery account if we don't already have one, because what we're required to do is upload this service account JSON file.
Right. Which I
So
believe, if I remember right, the URL for that is cloud.google.com, I think.
something like that, yeah, or it could be a console somewhere
Mhm.
there as well.
Yeah, I think console appears on the end. Uh,
Yeah, great.
console, right? This is what I want over here. So it's console.cloud.google.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is I have a I had a prior project that I deleted. Um,
So just gonna pause here, just for the benefit of the students. If you
mhm.
don't already have a Google Cloud account, when you create a new account with Google, you can ideally use your Gmail. Hopefully, you have a Gmail account already. Then you can just use that.
Yeah,
If not, your Temple account will also work. In this case, we're not. It doesn't matter which email you use. For the DBT side of things, you definitely want to use your Temple email account. But for Google, it doesn't matter. So
right.
what you'll need to do when you set it up, you'll be guided through a flow to set up your account. As part of the flow, don't worry, you will be asked to add your credit card detail. This is in case your project is huge and they need to charge you for it. Everything that we're doing is super small. Like, don't worry, I've had a cloud account for like 5 years now and I've never reached the limit for like actually paying for it. But what I recommend you do is go ahead and add your credit card. But then as soon as you do, and as soon as you're like logged in and everything's successful, go and just remove your card details if you want to be extra safe.
That's great. That's a great tip. I appreciate that. Let me also say right now what I'm using. So you saw me sign up for DBT Cloud with my first name dot last name at temple.edu email address. You can use any one of your Temple email addresses to do that. Just remember which one. And then as far as what I'm signed into here on the Google side of things, and this is where the data is going to sit, right? So the DBT is going to be active in transforming and working with this data, but the data needs to sit somewhere. That's why we're creating the data connection. Um, what was I going to say? Oh, I'm using my personal consumer Gmail account, Google account for this. I am going to say, even though you do have Google uh, services connected with your at temple.edu email address. Like I know some of you probably know you can get to Google Drive, Drive and Forms and Google Sheets. I'm not entirely sure that cloud is turned on in our temple.edu um, uh, partition, if you will, of the Google infrastructure. So that's why I chose to use my personal consumer account because I know that I won't have anything trouble turning anything on. Just and I that varies from university to university, so I thought I better
I think
call that
I think that's a good
out.
call out. It's a good call out because especially when you're creating a service account, like that we'll see soon, you have to give permissions to that service account. And
Right,
sometimes if you're using your organizational account, you will be limited in kind of what permissions you might
right,
be able to grant.
right. All right, all that. lengthy preamble. I guess I click the create project now, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Uh, uh,
Okay, so
I
I
don't
think
want to go to my pending deletion. Can I just create project?
can we select a project at the top? Uh,
Selected project?
okay. So we have this one already. Is that? Oh, okay. New project? Should we just create a new project?
I'm trying. Oh, there it is. Right.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. So that was I had a pending deletion in the background. You guys won't have that. You'll get to straight over to here.
Mm-hmm. Name it something
So
useful. Um,
how about that?
yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. We don't need an
Create.
organization. That's fine. Create. Yeah.
No, I don't want that. There we go. It's going to keep prompting me for that, I think.
Luckily, students won't see that, so that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I
Uh,
think you've created the project now, so we can select that project. Oh no, wait, not the.
oh
We can
yes.
select the one
Here we
you
go.
just
Select
created.
that one.
Yes, yes.
Move this. My zoom controls are. Come on. Let me try this again. There I
Okay,
am.
good,
Schaefer BigQuery
good,
project. Okay.
great. So now we click on the hamburger icon in the top left to access the menu.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of options here, so I'm going to guide you
Right.
towards the important ones. Feel free to explore on your own time. We want to go to IAM and admin, which is, I believe, where we'll be able to create service accounts. Yeah, so we can go to
Right.
service accounts. And so here, yeah, we want to create a service account with the plus. Yeah. And yeah, just give it an appropriate name, maybe like a DBT um, service account, something like that. You can add a description if you'd like. You don't need to. Create and continue. This bit is important. So now it's like, what permissions are you granting to your service account? The easiest
Mm-hmm.
thing you can do is just grant owner to your service account.
Oh,
So so this will just automatically give it everything.
right.
In practice, that is not a good thing to do because you
Right.
want to give minimal permissions to do the task that you want the service account to do.
Right.
Nothing above and beyond that.
Right.
But we're all kind of working on a kind of an educational project,
Yes.
so it's
Right.
fine.
Yes. You hear all that, students? There are things that make sense in the classroom that do not make sense in your workplace. This is one of them.
Correct.
So, and I think, Akash, this is probably where I messed up in my
Ah, okay,
earlier
okay.
attempts. I think I think I was too granular here, and
Ah,
I
okay.
probably missed at least one important role, and that's why I was stumped. But anyway,
Okay. Hopefully
continue.
this fixes it then.
Hopefully,
That's the
yeah.
main.
My fingers are crossed. See, okay, continue.
Yes. Yes. Um, so don't be fooled by the fact that it says optional. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
second part is optional, so you don't
Okay,
need to worry
so
about this
this
one.
one is for real important. This one we can skip. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
okay,
So we can click done.
done.
So now you have that service account. You can see you can close this tutorial, by the way, on the right hand side.
Yeah,
I feel like I am the tutorial right now.
correct. Yes, sir.
So what we'll do is you have this row for the service account you've created.
Uh-huh.
Actions, correct? Yeah. And we essentially want to create a key for the service account. So we want to manage keys. So you're taken to another menu, and now we want to add a key.
Right.
So create new
Create a
key.
new one,
Yes.
and we'd like that to
And
be JSON.
JSON, correct. So this is what we need for connecting BigQuery to DBT, whether you're
Right.
working on DBT platform, on the cloud interface, or locally, as you
Right.
will for the rest of the learning path and the workshop.
Right.
So
So this
both are
is
using
this
the same.
this is you treat this like a password, right?
Correct. Keep it
This gets
secure.
you
Yeah.
in to your Google account.
Yeah,
Um,
don't share it with anyone. Keep it like if you have like access to, there are software tools that you can kind of use as like a vault to keep your
hmm
files and keys safe. Feel free to do something like that if you have access to one with Temple or
Sure.
personally. But yeah, keep it safe is the main message.
Okay. So again, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to leave it in my downloads folder.
Hmm.
But hey, kids, you should probably keep it someplace other than your downloads folder, right? I'm
Correct.
just keeping it there to make the video shorter. So go find a good, safe place for that. So I'm gonna hit close.
Yeah. As we said earlier, there are things you do in an educational setting and things you do in the real world.
So true. Okay, so I've got my Google Cloud account set up. Do I need to do anything else here?
Let me think. For now, I don't think so. We can come back. Just leave the tab open in case we need to come back,
Of
but I
course.
don't think so.
Oh, I
Um,
I want to say another thing. Akash, where does the data come from? I mean, I'm going to write SQL statements, and I haven't uploaded any data yet. Where is it?
yeah, don't worry. Data's already been provided for you for from the DBT side. Luckily, you're able to use some SQL to get the synthetic data sets that we use for training purposes.
Yeah,
Of course, if you want to use your own data sets, like maybe you're using things like Kaggle or whatever, where you've got some like public data sets that you want to bring in, then obviously there's another process for that, which
right.
is outside the scope of this call, this
Yeah, yeah,
video.
yeah,
But for now, for the DBT kind of Jaffle Shop data sets, they're already there, so you don't need to worry too
yeah.
much about it.
And help me out here. So Jaffle Shop is an imaginary something. What is
Yeah,
it?
so Jaffles, they're a real thing. I found out,
Oh, are they
recently.
really?
Yeah, yeah, it's like an Australian toasted sandwich in a triangle shape.
I had
Um,
no idea.
it has to be specifically, I think, a triangle shape. But yes, you can buy Jaffle toaster machines and
Huh.
create your own Jaffle. But yeah, so it's a shop that essentially sells these
Sandwiches.
Jaffles
Yeah,
sandwiches
yeah.
and beverages. So it's like it's not a real store. It's a real product, but not a real store. And you have with that store comes things like order information, customer information, um, other product information, things like
Right,
that. That
right,
basically is the data set.
right. And there's another data set called Stripe.
Ah, Stripe, yeah. So
So
Stripe, you may
what's
have heard
that?
of before. You may have heard of Stripe before. It's a very popular e-commerce payment processor. So a lot of companies, when you buy things online, in particular, use Stripe. But it's essentially, yeah, another source of your data. So you might have multiple um, source systems.
Right.
Jaffle Shop is your kind of own store of data, like the source data, whereas Stripe is another organization that has its own source of data,
Yeah.
and that is your payment data, your
Yeah.
transaction
Yeah.
data.
Yeah. Because weirdly enough, this little sandwich shop does not want to manage credit card transactions.
Correct,
Right.
correct. It's quite troublesome. You don't want to take just cash. You want to offer,
Yeah. You're
the
right.
ability to pay with like your iPhone and like other things, cards, etc.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they use Stripe for that. Okay. Just a little
yeah,
tangent there to help set the stage. Okay. I'm going back to I guess I'm going back to DBT. Oh
correct.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
back to my DBT add new connection tab. And I'm going to upload that service account
Hmm.
file, which I cunningly put in my downloads folder. There we
There we go.
go. And there it is.
So it automatically fills out all of those details for you,
Yeah.
and then we
And I'm
can
going
just
to
go
hit
ahead and
save.
save. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So now if you scroll
And
down, it should be completed. I don't think there's any gaps here. No, that's fine. So we have a connection. Now we just need to
yeah.
go back to the other tab where we're
So
setting up
I'm gonna
projects.
close this tab just to keep the number of tabs to a minimum.
Yeah,
And there we go.
yeah. So we have the connection available now.
And development credentials.
Yeah. So in order to work in DBT platform, you will need development credentials, which is permissions to work with the data that exists in BigQuery. So we've created a connection to BigQuery with appropriate permissions. And essentially, we want to make sure that we're using that service account with those level of permissions for you to
Hmm.
use in development, because DBT does not contain any of your data, which is why a lot of customers like to use DBT. It connects to your data platform where the data lives, and it does everything where it lives, where the data lives. It doesn't bring any data into DBT platform.
Mm.
So for that reason, we need to make sure we have an appropriate connection. And another reason why you have development credentials, which are separate to what you'll see later in deployment credentials, is when you are developing things, when you are building things, testing things out, adding things on top of what already exists, you want to do so in a kind of a trial environment where you are safe from messing up what already exists in production. So that's why we have a separate development environment with our own development data set, which you can see is automatically named dbt underscore j schaefer for yourself.
Hmm.
And it will automatically be named with your first name, first initial surname. And that is to basically distinguish if you have multiple developers in an organization, you're likely to have multiple people working on the same project. It's to distinguish, the assets that you're creating versus assets other people are creating, and so there's no clash, there's no overwriting,
Right.
there's no accidental deletion, that kind of thing.
Right. So do I need to set anything here?
No, no, you're okay.
Okay.
There's information like threads, for example. DBT offers parallel processing of like different assets. So that's essentially what threads is for. But to keep costs to a minimum, let's just keep it at the default. We
Okay.
don't need to increase to like whatever
Let me give this a
3264.
test. This is
Yeah, go
this,
ahead and
this is the
test.
moment of truth, right?
Okay, good so far. Success.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
for the benefit of everyone, this is like one step further than what we managed last time.
That's right. That's right. So I'm gonna hit save.
Yeah.
And the real difference there, I'm convinced, is setting those permissions to
Permissions. Yeah.
owner on the
I think so.
Google BigQuery side.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a
Cool.
project now.
Your project,
Now what do I do?
fantastic. So now what you need is the third component. You obviously have dbt for your commands. You have your data platform connection for your data. And then the third thing is the project itself, the code behind the project, which is typically associated with a Git based location. So maybe you're using GitHub, GitLab, etc.
Hmm.
Or you just want to be like, I don't care about it, you do it for me, dbt platform, in which case you can select managed repo. So there are options. If you already, so in our workshop and in some of the online course material, you will be guided to a specific repo that you can use, that you can create a fork of, and then use
Hmm.
that repo here. But for the purpose of just what we're doing now, go ahead and yeah, create a managed repo. That's fine. Just bear in mind, like with the developer tier, you're only allowed one project at a time.
Right.
So when you are working on this managed project, that is one project, right? So if later on you realize that you want to connect to your GitHub account for a forked project for the course, for example, for the workshop, then just be aware that you will probably need to delete what you've done.
Come back in
Yeah,
and delete.
yeah,
Right, right, right. Okay, you hit create.
yeah. Let's see if that works.
Says it's ready.
Cool, perfect. So now what we can do is essentially start developing in Studio.
Okay.
So the biggest hurdles are, overcome. We just want to make sure that the development credentials are set up appropriately, that we're able to actually do some development. So okay, good news. It says no problems have been detected in the workspace.
Oh,
Ignore the fact that we now have an error.
okay. Ignore that. Okay.
Let's ignore it for now, because it says it can't find the file. That's because we haven't initialized the project yet.
Right.
So
So
one of the first things.
this,
So a couple of things. You can
yeah,
see the kind of revolving wheel at the bottom, which says checking connection. That is one thing that you want
right.
to ideally look out for. That hopefully will resolve itself once we have a DBT project as well. But you can click on that and it will tell you what it's doing. So you can see kind of like what it's doing. The warehouse connection is obviously important from the perspective of like if you don't have that warehouse connection, we can't do some development. But what we want to do is just initialize the DBT project.
Okay.
So we actually create something to work with.
So over
And this will
here.
just create exactly so this will just create an example DBT project.
Okay. Let me give it a go.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can see some
Positions.
assets that have been created.
We're still looking at that little spinning wheel.
Mm-hmm. So if you're still seeing maybe there's a connection that's still needed for this particular project that maybe hasn't gone through, we can double check that. If you click on checking connection,
Oh, yes.
yeah. If you just go to edit environment, so you can see this is the development environment. Development, that's fine. We're using Fusion Stable, fine. Connection to BigQuery, yes, we do have a connection there. Can you go to profile page, that link that says development credentials profile page? Yeah. And if we scroll down here, we just want to double check that you have development. Yeah, so it seems like if you click on edit, I think there sometimes is a test option, test connection. Yeah, if you just click on test connection again, we did do this earlier, I think, but let's just do this again. Okay, yeah, seems to be working fine. So there's no reason why you shouldn't get something to appear in Studio.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and cancel or save this. We didn't make any changes. That's fine. So if you go to that second tab, I think it was, where we were in Studio.
Here. Ah,
Yeah,
whoops.
I think so. Oh no, not there.
I think I was
That's okay. We can go back to Studio.
here.
Yeah.
Try that.
Okay. So you can see that wheel has stopped turning and it says
Hey.
compiled with a tick. That is a good sign.
Yes.
That is a good sign, and we don't
Hmm.
have any more problems. So sometimes, as with anything, it's a case of refreshing, coming out and going back in,
Sure.
just to refresh the state of the user interface. But it seems to be working fine. So this is like your most basic example DBT project now. So from here, you can kind of like follow along with the guides online with the learning content. You
Right.
can use the models here to build upon them to test things out. Jeremy, is it worth showing specific things now in this video, or shall we leave
If
that to
if
other?
you'll humor me for just one
Yeah,
second, I'd
yeah.
like to go back to um I feel like I have drifted. Oh, here we go. We're back on
Okay.
dbt
Yeah.
learn, right?
Yes.
Or learn.getdbt. So we've done, and I have
Oh, the
apologize.
data. The
I have
data,
to
isn't it?
constantly
Yeah.
move around my Zoom controls here, which you can't see. So we have done this, and we've I can keep going, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we've integrated with a data platform. Um, we have information about the Slack channel, and
Mm-hmm.
we have an email address, training@dbtlabs.com. Please include a URL and a screenshot along with your problem. I'm going to keep going. Um, now I can actually move on to SQL basics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh, wait. Oh, we were in the no, yeah, we were in Introduction to SQL.
Introduction. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get now. Most of my students or MIS students are going to be familiar with at least a little bit of SQL. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just hoping for a sample query for
Ah,
us
okay.
to run.
So we need to go back to that quick start guide for BigQuery because
Yeah, because I think it's
we haven't
back in
loaded
there.
the Jaffle shop data. We just have the example models. which don't really have any data of their own.
Right.
But yeah,
Was
if you
that?
open up
I
the
think
BigQuery one,
it was in here in the quick start for
yeah, I
BigQuery.
think there's a
There
step
it
here
is.
which tells you about how to add your data.
Again, and we've done these things.
So we've created a project. This is what we need, right? To create
Right.
the Jaffle shop data.
Right. Now this is from the BigQuery console. Is it the same? Are these the same statements
Let's try it
from?
out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
fine. That's
let's
right.
copy the code.
That's the way to do
You
it.
can click that box to copy all three lines. So
Yeah, I
this
can do
means
all
that
three.
yeah, yeah. So if I click past
Uh,
the editor, I think there was a link there that could take you directly maybe to it. The BigQuery. Oh no, that's just the console. Never mind. In step one, like it was.
Create a new file.
Oh no, sorry. It's in BigQuery console on Google Cloud Console rather
Oh,
than
oh,
in
here.
DBT. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I got
We need to go
lost
to
as to where we were. Let me go back here.
editor.
Where is it? It's
Is it in BigQuery? Like, do you have to go into BigQuery?
there it is. And then
Yeah,
there's Studio. So there's a
yeah.
couple different studios, right? I guess that's probably worth pointing out. There's a studio in Google Cloud BigQuery. There's a studio in DBT Cloud, and then there's Visual Studio Code, right? So that's kind of my tip to students is to read those things carefully. Um, uh, this is from my earlier mad scientist experiments, so please disregard this stuff down here. Um, this is what we just did,
Hmm.
and there you go. So that works on the Google BigQuery side,
Hmm.
correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we can just continue that quick start guide to see if we've missed any steps.
Okay.
Sorry, the second tab. Yeah. So I think in the interest of time, I'm just conscious like we might not get time to go through all of these steps. And it seems like the main connection from DBT and BigQuery seems to be working.
Yeah.
So I'm confident that the rest of these instructions should work. Just what I would encourage your students is, or just advise your students, is it's often very difficult to always match the velocity of product updates with the documentation. So just be aware that there may be times when terminology is a bit off, or the screenshots are a bit off, or
Yeah.
maybe you're expecting to see a certain thing written wherever you are, like editor, for example. There was a reference to a BigQuery editor, but now it's called Studio. So
Yep.
so these kind of things may change over time, but
Sure.
I encourage you to just like not lose faith. Like just
Right. And
keep like trying. You're not gonna break anything really.
yeah.
Just keep trying, and like if there severe issues, severe problems, and you're stuck completely, feel free to reach out to me directly. Also, we have a we will be having a setup clinic before the workshop. Whenever we decide on a workshop date,
Right.
we're going to have like office hours where I will be happy to help you out in a call like this with any kind of issues that you're having with
Right.
setup as well.
So again, for Temple students, the workshop, exact dates TBD, but it's going to be in the fall semester. So by virtue of going through the learning path material here over the summer, you will have a tremendous leg up on anybody else who might be attending that class. Um, just just to give a frame of time, a time frame for everybody,
Yeah,
right? Is that fair?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
Um,
Um,
so.
Anything else?
Yeah, yeah. Well, just real quick. So I'm
Yeah.
here.
Hmm.
Is there something I can do here? Like I can see that I can run these statements just fine.
Hmm.
Is there any sort of test
Yeah.
here that
Yeah,
I
so
can conduct to make sure that I'm actually getting connectivity to Jaffle
yeah,
Shop and Stripe.
that's a good point. Yeah. So if you just go to the general on BigQuery, if you just go to datasets, so we can see what datasets already exist in BigQuery.
Hmm.
So if you go to
Oh, here we
project
go.
and datasets, I think on the left hand side it should expand when you hover over it,
Right.
maybe for the BigQuery. If you scroll down to BigQuery, maybe there'll be.
Oh, right, right. I keep forgetting that there's
No, that's
more here.
fine. Maybe it's just overview or like something like that where you can access the datasets that are there. Maybe not. It's always hard to keep track of everyone's user interface. Um, so essentially on the left hand side, we should see. Let me just open it up on my side to see what I'm looking for as well.
Should I while we um uh look around here, should I just pause the video briefly?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay. Okay, we found it. Over here on the navigation menu, what we wanted was, in fact, under BigQuery Studio. You all will not have these recent data sets because that's from me from our prior attempt. Uh, but uh, if I do click on this compass icon in the upper left-hand corner, you'll be taken to the Explorer, which I'm on right now. And then underneath Explorer, there is our project. And underneath our project is the datasets options. And you can
Mm-hmm.
see that I have no datasets in this project. And that's what I need help with.
Correct,
So
correct.
what do I do
So,
now?
so two things. If you wanted the Jaffle Shop data, then if you follow the quick start guide, you will be taken through the steps to create your own dataset with the kind of synthetic data from DBT. Exactly this guide here. But what I'm trying to do here is with the example project that we've just created and initialized in DBT platform, what I want to do is see if we can just run a command to materialize those example models in a new dataset in BigQuery. So that's what I'm hoping to see, just to make sure that the connection is working fine. So if we go back to that project and in on DBT platform, yeah. So we can see there's no problem. So if we click on commands, towards the bottom, you will see like a tab for commands. Yeah. So this will just see any kind of like previous commands you've run. And below that, where it says type a command, yeah, we just want to type in the one of the most basic ones is a dbt build. So a dbt build you will do in your fundamentals learning is essentially materializing things, running any tests, any seeds, snapshots, etc. We don't have to cover what
Yeah,
that means right now, but what we want to do is just
yeah.
do a dbt build to see
Um,
whether that's successful.
okay, so I typed in dbt space build and
Correct.
enter.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you'll notice currently you're in your main branch. So if you've done like your Git workflows, you'll know obviously we want to, when we develop, we'll create our own separate branch to do the development in. But again, that's like a side
Oh
question.
no.
Okay, so that's okay. We can kind of see what's gone wrong. So that's a good learning opportunity. Oh no, no, that's fine. That's a test. That was a not null test, which is
Okay.
supposed to fail. It's
Okay.
supposed to fail as part of the training example project. You can see that it tells you what was executed, what passed, what was warned, what errored, and then because of the error, what was skipped as a result. So anything downstream of the error will have skipped. So what we can do is, if I can ask you to navigate to models in the file explorer on the left hand side. I'm just going to disable this test. If we go to, I think it should be in schema.yml, the schema YAML file. This will open up that file. And if you scroll down, essentially we want to get rid of that not null test in the my first DBT model. So you're currently in my second DBT model. So if you scroll up, yeah, my first DBT model, and just delete line 12. Yeah. So again, in your learning, you'll learn more about what this means, how do we apply tests, that kind of thing. But for now, just to make sure things materialize successfully, we can now retry this. So you can do the up arrow key as well to just execute
Ah,
the previous command.
it's build, however, correct?
Yeah, yeah, correct. DBT build. Yeah. So that will execute everything. And if there's another test that fails, we can kind of like disable that as well. Okay, success. So that means everything in the project built successfully. And so what
Great.
we're expecting to see is something on the BigQuery side as a result of that. So if we just navigate back to datasets, maybe click on refresh. Yeah, there you go. So now you can
Eh,
see your developer dataset, dbt underscore jshafer,
right.
which contains the assets that you've just materialized.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
All right. So that reinforces to me what you said earlier that with DBT, the data does not live in DBT
correct.
Cloud. The data, the transformations, everything's happening on the whatever the target is or the destination.
Correct. So you own your data. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We don't want to mess around
Fantastic.
with your own data. But yeah, you
All
have
right. Well, we've been at
control.
this for about an hour,
Yeah.
so which is just a hugely long video for any students to watch, I understand. But this is great. I feel like this is the place to stop. And I really appreciate your help getting me through all that. And we'll see what happens next.
No, great stuff. Well, all the
All right.
best, everyone.
All right. I'm going to hit stop.